Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cover to Cover, a week early. I was going to be pre-recording this episode, but I cannot help it. I am super excited because one of the coolest Kickstarters I've run into recently finishes tonight, and that's what we're talking about. Inspirisles by Hatchling DM. You'll see the link in the chat. Put in !belief, or believe, and you will get a link to the Kickstarter just like that. So check that out. And we're going to be talking about belief. We're going to be talking about foundlings and amazing game concepts and Arthurian legend, which is my jam. And just having a good time with it. And let me introduce Hatchling DM. How you doing, my friend?
Hi there, Casey. Nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and can you just let people know who you are? I'm sure a lot of people know by now because I've seen you on several things here lately.
Yeah. So my name's Rich, and I'm I run a tabletop group for teenagers in my local area in the UK, and they're called Hatchlings. And what started as a very sort of family-orientated community project has sort of grown into now an international Kickstarter that incorporates sign language into role-playing games and deaf awareness. Yeah.
Very nice. And first thing, I gotta ask, what is it like to, because I know you mentioned, and it says in the Kickstarter, that this was something you made for your group, for the Hatchlings. How does it feel to see something that was originally made for friends and your kid become something that's kind of already beloved by people all over the place, that people are excited for everywhere?
Well, I mean, me and my co-designer Liam, we were talking before the Kickstarter launched, and we're looking at the £1,200. We're thinking, I don't know. I really don't know if that's going to make that. And because I was facing the prospect of doing all the art myself, all the layout, learning like InDesign or something, or Affinity Engine publisher.
Yeah.
And just absolutely bashing us out before January and making quite. It would still be like a passion project, but it'd be very mediocre in terms of its reach and its scope. And then obviously, I've been spending a good part of a year and a half, maybe 2 years, building up a really loyal sort of community. I've got quite a few friends there that I've been to conventions with, and obviously it kicked in on day one, and it blew up. You know, it's completely blew up, and people were messaging me about the sign language element. I've worked in the deaf community in a charity for over a decade now, and I've run deaf awareness sessions throughout that period of time. And I've obviously been playing Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop games since the early 90s, and DMing for them. So it was just a combination of the two coincidental passions that led to me forming the group, with a of sign language within the system.
Okay. Before that, you said you've been playing D&D for quite a while. Is that most of your experience with gaming is with Dungeons & Dragons?
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, before that, very into video games. I've played a few other role-playing games, especially recently in the last 5 years. But previously to that, it's pretty much second edition Dungeons & Dragons, and then 3.5, and then 5th edition, which I felt was a very good system in terms of how streamlined it's been made, how accessible it is in some ways. It's still a massive template for learning as well. It's difficult sometimes. You have to get 3 books, from the outset, even with a starter kit, and it costs a lot of money, and it's got massive issues. Even in the Hatchlings group, I had issues in terms of like the longevity of the combat and how ponderous it could become. Sometimes we spend Hatchling sessions 2.5 sessions, like 80% of it was a combat encounter.
Oh yeah. That's definitely. I've been loving seeing a lot more games go to core rule books that are the one big book, so that people don't have to spend quite as much. Don't have to order 4 or 5 books to play a game. You have just the one, and if you want to add to that, you can, but it's definitely not necessary. I've been loving that as kind of a trend that's popped up more and more here lately.
I mean, people say that you should have a breadth of, if you're a game designer, you should have a breadth of kind of experience with different systems and things. But in some ways, knowing what didn't work with Dungeons and Dragons has really helped me with Inspirisles. It's really kind of like made me concentrate on the areas where the hatchlings were struggling.
Sure.
The couple of one of the issues was some of the themes of the games. Especially the pre-written modules, they can become quite murderous and bloodletting, all these things, and very, very dark themes. And some of the kids were fine with that, but others were not so comfortable.
Oh yeah.
And the other section was combat, how ponderous it could become. So we've made a system where it's about combinations. It's about working as a team, and the encounters can be over quite quickly. But on the other hand, they can go on at high levels for a bit longer time. But it's never like hours of like hitting like HP.
That's really interesting, and it kind of goes with an earlier episode of this show. I spoke with a high school teacher who's in my area, who runs one of the most successful high school D&D games that I've ever run into. She has a club for her high school students. They play Magic the Gathering and D&D and all sorts of stuff like that. But she now has over 50 members, and the only club that's bigger in her high school is the football team.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, and she told me
so amazing.
Right? She's been going around the country like talking about it. It's really cool.
That's so good.
She told me she's had to heavily, especially we're here in Tennessee, right on the border of Kentucky. We're in the American Bible Belt hardcore, so they don't want violence in their games at school and stuff like that. So she's had to heavily alter the game. It's hardly recognizable anymore. It's still a great game, but it's so far from D&D that it's great to see games out there that all that extra work wouldn't necessarily be required on the part of the players.
Exactly. Oh, congratulations to her. That's fantastic. 50 members is amazing. Yeah, and it is the fastest growing hobby especially for young women in the US for a while now, and that's mainly contributed to the growth of the Dungeons Dragons in the media, obviously.
Oh yeah.
The popularity of it. Just to go into that point with Inspirisles. So the initial concept was that we didn't want lots of violence in it. In fact, we got rid of entirely death and injury from the game.
Oh, really?
So the system. Talk about the belief system, which we were interested in before. So the idea is that everything you do in the game generates belief, right? And this will eventually save the kingdom. And it's just kind of like a win state for the game. So everything you can do, anything you want. You can do even combat, even like thievery. It earns belief. Because you're even fear earns belief because you believe in more of the Fey race, on the Fey races and the islands and all the magic, basically. So any action it generates belief, and even if you engage in an action, you earn a small amount of belief. So even if you're not particularly successful, you still earn a little bit.
Yeah, and we have that right in the Kickstarter as well. I've got it pulled up so people can see the Kickstarter right now.
Yeah.
Again, hit !believe. If you would like to get a link to the Kickstarter in the chat. So here it says, belief is the keystone of the Inspirisles. I like the wordplay there. It's the Isles as well. The energy binding all things. In its absence, the land and its children would fade from life and from memory. If belief were to run dry, it would have terrible repercussions. Imagine something calamitous like Earth's polar caps suddenly melting or electricity disappearing from the globe overnight. And I also... the whole belief system kind of goes into, you start the Kickstarter with a Peter Pan quote.
Yeah.
And I loved that, because that goes with, I do believe in fairies, I do. And that's literally Tinkerbell's existence subsides on belief.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Peter Pan's a big influence, and a lot of other, there's a lot of Celtic mythology in there. But essentially, the sort of backstory, not to go into too deeply, but the backstory is that there was a huge conflict, and they realised that it caused disbelief. So disbelief is the opposite energy. Obviously, that's what builds up through like conflict and violence and all these things.
Interesting.
And they basically, the ruling races of the Inspirisles banned all sorts of death and injury and like bloodletting. So all combat, even though it still generates belief, is done through magic. And the only way you lose is by being defeated, which is being subject to disbelief. So you basically surrender. If you go into combat with another enemy or a foe or a creature or monster, you either surrender the encounter or they surrender the encounter, and then you earn belief accordingly, depending on how successful you are.
Okay. And it's the idea of healing the land came into the descriptions quite a bit as well. Can you talk about that? So in this world, it seems that things are damaged in some way, and the characters are out to often fix it. Or heal it, rather, might be a better way to put it.
Yeah, so the system works. So there's basically two systems at play. So there's an accumulation of belief, which can be used in a number of ways. Now, it's essentially our currency, our experience, everything tied into one sort of energy, a bit like the Force in Star Wars.
Okay.
It binds everything. So what you can do when you've earned a certain amount of belief, you can either go on a pilgrimage to the World Tree, which is Avalon, in the grounds of Avalon, where the spirits of King Arthur and Guinevere live or dwell. You can pour the belief onto the roots of the World Tree, and for that you get ability cards. So what happens is you're trained by the spirit knights of the Round Table in Avalon. Mm-hmm. Now, the second way you can do it is a patronage. Now, in the game, you have 4 patrons, which are essentially the gods of the world. They're called inspired. And when you select your character, when you create your character, you offer patronage to one of them.
Okay.
Now, if you use your belief and you visit this patron, because they're in different, inspired, are in different areas of the world, they can offer you shapes, which are essentially our spells in the game.
Okay. And
they're the only ones that can gift them. And the third way is called community, basically. And this is the race that have in the world that have kind of trained you for you to earn this belief.
Okay.
So they trick when you start as a 13-year-old, but you train for 2 years with a certain family or community, and then if you go back to them, offer belief to your community, they give you essentially store cards, and you can get items from stalls and from that community.
And that does bring us to the foundlings and what exactly they are. And we have this great. I love all the art in this book. It's been some of my favorite art for any.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's really kind.
And this mole character, I'm a big. I went to school to get my master's in early English literature, and kind of as it evolved into modern fantasy. So I'm a big Tolkien guy. I love the work of Lloyd Alexander with the Chronicles of Prydain, and this just rings true to some combination of a hobbit and a fey creature from the Chronicles of Prydain, and it makes me happy. I know you mentioned Celtic, but I feel like I'm reading some amount of Welsh mythology as well. Is that?
Yeah, it's drawing on all of them. I mean, the Knockers are Cornish. And there's some in the north actually.
Okay.
We got Welsh. The Bucker are kind of a Welsh Celtic creature. We've got Scottish mythology. We've got from Ireland. We've got Piskies and stuff in it as well, and we've got the Doulahan as a monster in the game.
I almost said it was a blend or that those all kind of blend together, anyways. But then the mythology scholars get upset with me, so I'm not going to say it.
It's definitely like the British Isles, basically, and Ireland.
For sure.
It's drawing on all of them. That and the Arthurian is at the core of it. Mm-hmm. So we've got Excaliburs in fragments, and this is the other system it's working. Okay. So every 3 questing days. So shall I explain the system from the beginning?
Let's do that.
Okay. So the foundlings are basically the long distance ancestors of the human race, or human members of our race, that formed a pact with the Fey realm. Mm-hmm. And basically what happened is the Earth was drifting into disbelief at some point, which it kind of is now, but we won't talk about that. But it was drifting into disbelief, and it was tilting so far that the world would have been destroyed. And at the same time, because the Fey realm's parallel to ours, they were also experiencing the same levels of kind of calamity, should we say. So the humans decided to go to the Fey realm. Like, this was Arthur back in the day, in the mythological day, and he said, we need belief on Earth to right the kind of balance of things. So the Fey agreed to give them this stockpile of belief, basically, which is like like as I was saying, it's the energy that binds everything. You imagine it's like some people see it as like God, some people see it in any other ways. I see it as this belief system, and they basically gave the Earthlings and Arthur and Guinevere, this lot, a massive pile of belief, and it kind of balanced the world out, and they all felt it returned to sort of normality for a long period. But because the Fae gave all this massive amount of belief to Earth and to save humanity, they felt their own world slip a little bit. So what they agreed, this pact they made, was that they'd send human children every 500 years, say, back to the Fae realm to help them out, because human children have the most ability to earn belief.
Very Monsters Inc.
Very Monsters Inc. Very Monsters. This is what dusting is. This dusting is kind of, they go back through the portal after they've been trained, and they kind of show humans that magic still exists.
Okay.
So like, you can imagine them like going up with a surfer and rising up on the wave naturally, kind of like without a board or something. Or like, there's multiple ways to demonstrate belief.
Do we in the game have any like notable like elder like foundlings who've been there for a while who have returned that are particularly notable figures?
Back to Earth?
Or just in general, like experienced foundlings that players might meet along the way.
So when you've hit the win state, so say you do a certain amount of questing days with the Grail Guide, which is our GM, then you have two decisions to make. You go in front of the whole council, so all the ruling houses and the inspired, and they give you two options. One, you can go back to your family. You know, your pact is complete. You can go back to your family, live a normal life, or you can choose to remain there and be like a legend the rest of the time. So there are two choices you have. So at the same time, every 3 questing days that you have, so essentially say that's like 3 separate adventures in D&D, say, in a whole campaign.
Sure.
You have a thing called a disbelief chart, which the Grail Guide controls. Now, every time you go past 3 days, regardless of how much belief you've made, that will move down a tier. Every time it moves down a tier, it unlocks something calamitous. So one of the tiers would be essentially like unleashing the Kraken in Greek mythology. It's a thing called the Questing Beast, which I've just put on the Kickstarter, which is an Arthurian mythology of this thing that's used to stalk after the Grail all the time. So it would unlock that kind of calamitous event. Say like part of the land, the coast on the Bent Trident Basin, which is one of the Welsh coast areas, would sort of collapse into the sea.
Okay.
So every time 3 questing days happen, or 3 adventures within this world, it moves down chart. Now, the difference is that if you get to a certain point of level or rank, so you know I said that you can earn these cards.
Yes.
That's to rank your individual foundling. So it's essentially like earning a level.
Okay.
But the only way to rank up is as a group. So you have to give all your belief in one sort of clump to the ruling houses, and they say, right, you've moved up a rank. Now, if you make it through 6 ranks, you've completed the game. But you have to do that before it reaches the bottom of the disbelief chart.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's kind of game over.
So it's a little like Zelda Majora's Mask, Dawn of the Third Day,
Yes,
a little
yes,
bit like
yes,
Countdown to Infinity.
Exactly.
Okay. The character sheet is very interesting, too. I love the look. And we have our 3 ways of using belief at the bottom of the sheet.
Yep, so that's the spells, the abilities, and the items, yeah.
Let's talk about... I am curious about the use of dice and belief in here, but maybe we should wait on that for a moment and stay on Foundlings a little bit longer. The 8 Fae clans, can you tell me a little bit about each one? Kind of a brief...
Yeah, let me get my laptop up. It'd be easier to do it then.
Sure.
Got my notes there.
I can say that I'll be picking knockers for my clan at first because mole men.
That's only because there's a picture of them.
Yes, it's delightful though. It's delightful.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think of the fire god Kilner?
Yeah. Oh, I love Fae creatures. They are my favorite thing in D&D. My most beloved D&D character was Calico Jack, who
Right, okay.
I studied Shakespeare in school a lot, and I love Shakespeare. And so the character was inspired as he was the changeling child that Titania took in Midsummer Night's Dream. Was the idea.
Okay.
So he was raised in the Fae by Titania and had come back to the prime material plane, not understanding how all this concrete, not changing stuff works. And he was just like a kid in a candy shop, and he was my favorite character I've ever played. So I love Fae creatures. I love everything about that kind of stuff.
Well, when you come to choosing your affiliated friend, they're called friends, then you might very well change your mind because they're all fake. They're all fake creatures. So, so a couple of them are kind of made up by me, influenced a little bit by D&D because I wanted kind of mixed kind of feelings about things. So the knockers, they sort of inhabit the mines. So they're in tin mines basically. Their main sort of hub area is Cornwall. So like the end of Cornwall, the southwest of the UK, and they live in a place called Pengregi Mine, and they inhabit the mines. They're solitary creatures. They're fiercely protective of their dank, inhospitable homes. They're forever digging for veins of silver and precious gemstones to adorn anything plain or lifeless. They love the arts as much as they love wealth. Knockers will travel great distances to seek an audience with the inspired Kilner, believing he is the patron of their race. So their patron is the fire god Kilner, or the fire-inspired Kilner. Now, yes. Now, this is very integral to character creation. So before the characters, for instance, before you could even see a picture of the knocker, you'd already selected them based on text.
Okay.
So we're having a blind character creation thing in some ways. So your what you'd read was a sheet with these different things on it. So for the knocker, it would be you have a first memory, basically as a founding in the real world, as a human in the real world, you would have had the first memories or a series of repeated memories about this image of being a child in this community.
Okay.
And so this one says, your first memory was of rock and a constant hammering of metal. Just as you were adjusting to the darkness, something was poured into your eyes, blinding and burning. For 3 days and nights you cried, unable to see anything but a strange darkness. Not a wall of black, but something pulsing with life. Then your world appeared, hewn rock, gleaming gemstones, carts, buckets, picks, and mole-like creatures surrounding your amethyst crib.
Ooh.
So you would, if you read that and you'd be like, "Oh man, I really dig that description," then that's the character you would pick.
This makes me
that
happy.
Would be race, and then you'd automatically have Kilner as your patron.
Very
so
cool.
It unlocks quite a few sequences of kind of character creation. Then you've got the worm bitten. They're like half dragons, half worms. The worms, they're called worms in our world, these dragons, and they're actually a bit more than normal dragons in the sense that they teach you sign language.
Ooh.
So the gods, the inspired, give you the spells, and then the worms are essentially the teachers of our world. And we've already unlocked 3 of them on our rewards here. So the people are going to be able to create these teachers with us, which would be amazing. Your first memory was of steam and a desperate thirst. Just as you were adjusting to the heat, something was poured into your mouth, thick and acidic. For 3 days and nights you cried, unable to drink anything. Where was the milk of the breast you just desperately craved? Then sustenance came, but it was more of a black liquid, only now it tasted wonderful. Drinking too much, you belched a tiny cone of flames, nearly singeing the hairs of the snake-like creatures surrounding your scale crib. So they've all got this flavor text about it, about how you...
I really love how, like, transformative these all are. Like, they give the feeling of, like, for lack of a better term, like this birth into a new world.
Yes.
But
it's only a memory. It's only a memory. It's only like quite a dark memory. But it informs the sort of the friend or the race that you select. Yeah. The worms are kind of like obsessed with their ancestors because whenever they have the equivalent of like bird watching, where they looked at the skies for like actual like full on teacher worms and they're kind of obsessed with, and they want to be part of their sort of like collective. They're like, you know, like their clique or something.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. I can go on, but there's a...
Yeah, let's
I'll briefly go
some
through
for people to discover.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for sure.
But there's essentially like the royal race, which are like essentially like high elves, or high fairies, and there's the same people that descended to the sort of Under Isles, which is essentially like our underworld.
Okay.
And they lost their ability to fly over time, so their wings kind of like sort of. Have you read the book? What's the book with the angel in the shed? It's a brilliant book.
It sounds familiar.
What's that book with the angel in it? The really famous book, Skellig. You read that?
I unfortunately have not. I've heard of it, but I have not read it. No.
I was kind of inspired by that. It's one of my favorite books, even though I forgot the name. And that's about an angel basically who's in this kid's shed, and his wings are sort of crumpled, and he can't fly away, and he can't perform miracles anymore because he's so like downtrodden and depressed.
Okay.
So it came to the idea of that, but again, we're being very careful not to make these like a bad person, the bad race. There is no bad race. There's no real evil creatures in the game, because everything there's no evil creatures. Everything's grey, but also it's just the way that people earn belief. So people can go into battle more, or they can scare people, or they can do these things, but it doesn't mean they're evil. It just means that they earn belief in a different manner.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily breaking things down like Summer Court good.
Yeah, nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. Because the summer winter courts aren't necessarily evil and good, are they?
No, they're something else. Not quite.
Yeah, I mean, there's more Machiavellian mischievousness in the winter court, but the summer court have got very nefarious ways sometimes of getting ahead.
Are you familiar? You mentioned a book, so I'll mention one too. Are you familiar with Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite depictions of the Fae. It's not even the man with the thistle down hair isn't necessarily evil. He's just not from here. He doesn't get it. And that's a brilliant book. Yeah, I think again, she's written a new one. Hasn't she? It's come out actually. I believe so.
Yeah, it's just come out. I can't remember the title of it, but
I heard about that, but I haven't looked into it yet. But she's a fantastic writer.
Yeah, man. Yeah, prose are incredible. My background's in writing, so I did a master's degree in creative writing.
Oh, very awesome. I'm on the opposite end. I did the lit side of things.
Yeah. Yes, it's nice to be quite confident with your words.
Oh yeah, for sure. Is that where you're? Of course, you're drawing from a lot of different things as far as like literature and mythological like heritage. Like you said, Welsh, Celtic, all these different inspirations from the British Isles and from the UK. Is that something you were particularly focused on in your studies and in writing, or where does that come from?
So initially, I guess I've always been into mythology and folklore, really into it. I'm very much into Japanese mythology as well. The way that came about, or informed stuff, was from Princess Mononoke, the Ghibli film. Have you ever seen that?
I have. I love everything Miyazaki.
Yeah. So a lot of the themes and the feeling of the game are going to be very Ghibli-esque or Princess Mononoke related, and Spirited Away. I mean, one of the gods, Aethelin, they have a bathhouse that you can work in. So one of the big areas, the other areas, and it's why it's educationally developed as well, is there's not enough life skills taught in schools. Like in my feeling, it's all to do with mathematics and stuff, but there's not enough like actual practical skills learned in school. So one of the things we want in a game, and the reason that we're a teen-led company. Adults will completely enjoy this as well, of course, because the systems are built for adults and teenagers. But one of the ideas is that you have this thing called apprenticeships. And what you can do is each of the inspired are very much part of their community one of them has a forge, Kilner, as you can see in the picture. He likes crafting metalwork. For the pixies are kind of our inventors of the world.
Okay.
And Kilner is kind of a high level crafter. Okay. And he can turn their metal inventions into something else entirely, almost like blessed items, basically.
Sure.
But you can work in the forge as like a handler, and then like a striker, and then you go to different levels, and each time is essentially you earn like a wage, but in belief, essentially.
Love it.
And then Aethelin, they have a bathhouse, and which is a place that people can go to relax. So it's like Spirited Away. So they go all the sort of creatures and the friends can go there to relax. Even the ruling houses can go there, and you can work in there. You can work as a cleaner, like Chihiro does in the film, or you can move your way up to like a therapist, all the way up to a therapist, or like a floor manager. So you can do things like Reiki. You can do things like like giving people like the mud spirits baths and things like that.
There we go.
So I can tell this is striking the notes with you.
This is great. I know a lot of things like this. A lot of new games here lately are adding like a suggested reading for inspiration in the background. If this book was to include something like that, sounds like Princess Mononoke might be in that like suggested reading viewing.
Yeah.
What else?
It might be nice. Yeah, it might be nice. Well, playing Zelda games.
I've been addicted to Breath of the Wild for the past few weeks.
I had an argument. I had an argument today on someone with Twitter about it. I don't know if you saw it, but he was talking about they should be separate things. They shouldn't inform each other. Games and role playing games.
No.
I was like, I argued with him. I said basically, Breath of the Wild is the closest we've ever been to a TTRPG in a video game. It's 100% the closest we've ever been because of how open it is. Mm-hmm. How the mechanics can be informed in so many different ways. There's so many ways you can approach things. There's no apart from the towers. There's no real way markers and things. There's no like you have to go here.
Yeah, that's true. It is very much like a game where like, oh, I just found this random maze in the woods, and now that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, for like 3 hours.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's very true.
Yeah. No, so Breath of the Wild visually and in terms of some of its kind of like mechanics are very much imbued within Inspirisles, definitely. Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. That like medias should stay separate. You can draw from all sorts of things. That's silliness to me. There's video games, movies, television, all sorts of great things to draw from. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but like, I felt quite strongly that I felt like, and also I kind of feel like people need to experience things. I mean, by saying someone hasn't played something or someone has experienced something and then making a comment about it, I don't think it's right. I think people should experience something before they make a judgment on things.
Yeah,
100%. Like we were talking before the stream about the combat wheelchair. Like unless you've been in that unless you've been in that situation, or you've got a lot of friends or experience within that, even in working within that environment, you don't really have a lot of say in it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very true.
Talk from experience or don't talk at all, really, to be honest.
Very cool. Another thing, kind of shifting gears a little bit, and we'll come back. I guarantee we'll come back to talking about kind of the inspirations, because that's something that I'm fascinated by. But
There's a lot.
The book on the cover, like specifically tabletop gaming for teens, and that's mentioned several times in there. What goes into making a game that's aimed at a younger audience in your mind? What separates a game that's made for teens from a game that's not? Because I think we have a problem in TTRPGs in general, at least here in the US. Maybe it's different in your circles, but here we have a problem sometimes with a lot of older gamers kind of preferring the complex and the convoluted because it can sometimes be a little harder for someone to learn, and it functions as almost a gatekeeping tool, and that's something that I've kind of gone against a lot when I can.
Yeah, I think this is could go very deep, but basically, I think you're right about that. I think it can be the crunchiness of it and the kind of like complexity of it. I think a lot of people, when I was doing my MA, because I did my MA, and I exclusively wrote young adult work. So my novel I wrote as my dissertation for my MA directly informed the game. It was basically about a kid in the 1980s in the UK whose father had gone to the Falklands War and gone missing in action. And this boy became in contact with the spirit of his grandfather through a dead fox. Now, his grandfather, the spirit of his grandfather, told him to basically work to restore this fox, and the fox is in reality a fey entity, a fey creature. And then this kid had to do all these tasks for this fey world, basically, and they guaranteed that his father would be returned safely. It's very much like the film Labyrinth, where she had to do all these tasks to get her brother back, basically for the Goblin King, because he was quite a dark character, obviously.
Yeah, very cool.
So it's very much for that. But what I'm saying is, the point I'm making is that during that MA, a lot of people were poo-pooing or kind of saying very negative things about young adult writing and about books for young people. They weren't sophisticated. They're easy to do. I in my experience, the hardest books to write are picture books for kids. Like by far, I don't think even people like Neil Gaiman said I couldn't possibly do like a book for like 3 to 5 year olds. I'd really struggle, and it's that attitude that it's similar in tabletop role playing games. Just because something is streamlined, simplified, and it's communicated really clearly, and I was reading Quest, I was reading Wander Home. And the language used in these games that could be perceived as being like simplified or like streamlined, I just think the accessibility is so much better in them.
And accessibility's been very much in the ether of conversation for tabletop gaming for a while now. We're seeing people bring that up in a variety of ways, whether that's being more inclusive by removing content that not scares people away, but makes people want to stay away from the tabletop gaming experience because it's offensive or harmful in some sort of way. I mean, Asians Read has done a great job of pinpointing things we can do to make gaming more friendly for new audiences.
Yeah,
things
for sure.
Like the combat wheelchair, which I've been meaning to do a read through on it. But Dislocating GM did a great talk with Todd Kenrick, and I just don't see the point in me doing anything right now because you can hear her talk about it directly. You should go watch that chat. And there's just been all this great talk about that. There's been talk about making sure that your stuff has closed captions when you're streaming. Something I'm working on, but I haven't figured it out yet. Or including alt text. I saw a great thread about including alt text in your images when they're online. Just all this talk about inclusivity and the effort to make things dyslexia-friendly text in books. All of these things are things that are going to allow the next generation of gamers, these younger people that are coming into our hobby, have so much easier time doing so.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think I spoke to Devon from the Podcast Network the other day, and he was very into accessibility, and we were talking about this exact thing. And he said, do you think it's going to continue? The trend's going to continue? I said to him, it has to. It has to. I don't think by 2021 that an indie developer or any developer will be able to disclude things like this.
It will become more and more, I think, demanded. Right now, it's something that we look at and we're like, oh, that's really nice. Like, I'm glad that person's doing that. But I give it a few more years and it's going to be, how dare you not?
No, it's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. I think this feels like there's a wave at the moment. It feels like myself with Inspirisles and a few other developers are making things that are almost entirely positive messages. Almost the game system is working towards altruism, community, teamwork, kind of like positive thought.
Yeah.
And that is a great wave to be riding. That is a great wave to be riding. And I think the accessibility, the inclusivity, I think, and representation all come into that bracket about positive movement, positive thought for people in different communities, different situations. And like you say, once the upper echelons adopt these things, because it has to come from them at some point, has to go, this is the hill we're standing on. And we're going to have to support this person, and we're going to have to shut down people that are being negative about it.
For sure.
Once they get on board, then of course it will filter down to everywhere.
So what are some other elements that goes into a game for teens, other than those kind of entryway topics?
I think it's a lot of the language. I think it's a lot of the language use. I think it's a lot of we talk about these safety tools as well. Even in a game focused very much on even a horror game, for instance, very much for adults. I think we've got the thing called the Grail template, basically, which is also on the Kickstarter. Which Josh, you've seen the Grail on there, the Grail image. But basically, that's used by the Grail guide to put on a table, and it flips over from different colours. And if a player again is uncomfortable with a scenario, or even an image being brought to the table, then they can flip it over, and then we can deal with it at the end of the session. And the Grail guide can move on to it quickly.
Yeah, sort of like a progression of the X card system. Sounds like it's that, but with stages.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's been my personal favorite so far, is the X card. My group has really taken well to that one, just because it's easy to do, especially over the internet.
I think it's a necessary thing, isn't it? Really,
it really is, and I think we've had some recent instances that have really shown that. I've been having to kind of teach myself about it, and I still don't know enough. I understand the X card system very well. I have trouble remembering all the language around like lines and veils, though I get the basic concept. And I'm very much, especially, we just finished a Kids on Bikes game, which is such a great game, but it involves sensitive topics. And I was like, as a GM, I don't like violence towards animals is something that I can't really stomach. So that's not going to be something that I will do. Are there any things that we just right off the bat do not want to cover?
Yeah. That's the importance of a session zero, isn't it? The importance of discussing these things. Yeah. And I've had to do that with the Hatchlings so many times. In fact, every session with the Hatchlings. Because you got a responsibility when you're working with children. But in terms of the core aspects of the game, from the very beginning, it was about empathy, life skills, and deaf awareness. Now, the reason that they're specific to children and adults, hopefully, obviously it would apply to them as well, is that dusting creates a sense of empathy and teamwork, because you're going back and you're trying to convince your peers to believe in magic again and to believe in you. And all the systems are geared towards a collaborative thing. Essentially, it's essentially like I would see Dungeons and Dragons as a very separate class system, and everyone combining, but very separate rounds. But with our system, it's very much a collaboration. It's very much like Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or anything like that. Yeah. Any sort of combination thing where the card system. I haven't been into it yet, but with you, but essentially the person that chooses a scenario at the beginning of the questing day, and then that's the scenario that they take on as the leader of the group. Okay. And then between the other players, whether there be one other player or 4 other players or 5 other players, they choose between them all to throw another card in to assist them. Yeah. Right, so the leader will put their card down they want to play, whether it be an ability, a spell, or an item, depending on the scenario. The group can then choose one other card to use from someone else's pool to put in, depending on how many they've got left. Yeah. Then that goes towards the system rolling, and eventually the outcome, and depending on how much belief they've earned through the dice roll, the card bonus, the boon bonus, and if they need to use it or they feel like they need to use it, which is the grail pool, which is the polyhedral dice, So D4 to D20, they can choose to use that as well as the leader of that scenario.
Okay.
And then the belief is distributed accordingly depending on how far they're over the base average roll.
Yeah. I'm really interested in the combination of dice and cards here. I've been noticing more games that use cards, and I'm personally a fan of it. Though it definitely, I haven't had a chance to play with it much myself. Can you explain a little bit about kind of how the cards work, I guess, is the general question.
Well, before I explain mechanics, the reason for the cards, fundamentally, was for two reasons. One, the teenagers like physical things at a table.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, they already love the dice. I think, adults do as well, obviously. But, in particular, children seem to like something they can get hold of and they can laminate and they can throw down. Like, imagine a gathering. It's huge, isn't it? It's an absolutely massive game.
Yeah.
Because it's card-based, and people love card-building games, board games. So that's the one reason. The other reason is because the autistic community... we've got an autistic a consultant on the game, Jamie from Bristol. He's got his whole business is working with the autistic spectrum community with role-playing games and Dungeons and Dragons, and he says that the two things that they're really into, that sort of section of the community, are physical things, but also minis, like painting minis. That's what he does. The other section of his business. So I thought, well, we can't do the minis right now because we're expecting to make £1,000. There's no way that I can produce any 3D printed miniatures. I'm not saying I won't do in the future because that's something we would like to explore. But we can have the cards, definitely.
Yeah. I really like that. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. I used to substitute teach for elementary school, and my wife still does. She's a dance teacher. Yeah. And of course, the physical aspect of that has a whole other premise to it. But when she does crafts and stuff with the kids, and that's something she's talked about a lot. Kids do love to have something to hold that they can manipulate.
Yeah,
that's
much so.
Really interesting.
Also, they'll have ownership over them because you can choose which abilities, items, and spells you have from the different areas I talked about the pilgrimage, the pilgrimage, the patronage, and the community. Yeah. So you can choose. Because say you're patron. Say you're a knocker. Say you're affiliated with the knocker friends, and your patron is Kilner. Then you would get a bonus if you went to him for a fire spell.
Okay.
Because you're the fire element basically.
Yeah. All right.
So as soon as you pick a different foundling association with a friend, you would have a very different element and a very different abilities and route. Yeah.
Okay. To that end, well, before we get into this, probably the most important thing, or the most interesting thing, and what sets this game apart is that it teaches as you play. It teaches sign language as you play, and I love that. I love anything that really teaches in a fun way, where kids can play it, and it's like, oh, I learned something. Because as a teacher, I use those things all the time, and I love
absolutely.
I love the look on their faces when it's like, "Ha! You learned something.
You didn't know it."
Yes, but can we talk about the vehicle for that, which I believe is largely in the shaping system?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about shaping. How does that work?
Yeah, well, so the whole concept came uniquely because obviously I've been working with the deaf community for over a decade now, well, about 11 years, and running deaf awareness sessions in my local city centre for a long time, and obviously learning BSL as part of the job. And I thought, I'm going to combine my two passions. Maybe there's a way of doing this. I've got a lot of contacts. I know a lot of deaf teachers, BSL teachers. I know a lot of colleagues that would do films for me and do tutorials, and that's how it started. I realised maybe a little while ago that this was definitely possible. What I didn't anticipate was the reception to how much people would get on board with this and how passionate they would feel about this. Now the system is shaping, yeah. So essentially, when you get a spell from your patron called a shape, you can then work on different ranks of sign language. Now, what you start with is whenever you learn sign language is the alphabet and numbers. So this is what you initially learn through the spells. So if you have a fire spell, which one of the first rank spells, to let you in some details for the first time on any stream, you have Conjure Flame from Kilner. Conjure Flame, for example. Sure. Now, so that would be signed, finger spelled at rank 1, so it would be F-I-R-E.
Okay.
So that, and then you cast it by using that finger combination, spelling combination. And this is already after you learnt your name in finger spelling. So say you've picked a character name. So say it's Troy, T-R-O-Y. So before you even start a session, you'll practice your name, and you introduce yourselves to each other, and you'll look at your alphabet sheet and learn your name. And then once you get into the game, because it'll be after the first couple of adventures, you'll start to learn about spells, and you start to finger spell the spells, the shapes.
Yeah.
So that's rank 1. So as you rank up, so there's 6 ranks, and each rank has a different level of sign language learning. So the second rank would be words, and then with that you do, instead of doing Conjure Flame, you do flame, the sign for flame, and you finger spell it as well. So essentially you're moving up to word use. Okay, but at the same time, your sheet with that is greeting sheets. So, how to say hello, how to say goodbye, how to say what time it is. So, so you have a basic word sheet then. So that's rank 2, and I don't want to give everything away.
Yeah.
But each rank is represented by a higher level of signing learning. Until you get to rank 6, which is essentially before the game ends, where you're learning a thing called a lexicon. Now, this was unlocked through the stretch goals for BSL and ASL, and what that is me, my partner, and my game designer working with a prominent deaf tutor in both languages. And what they will do is they will develop a lexicon specific to the game. Now, before we started, this was going to have some affiliations with Dungeons & Dragons, and we came up with some signs for it with this person. Okay. And for instance, the beholder was like the body of the beholder and the eye stalks. Oh. So that would have been the sign. That would have been the sign for beholder.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, but what it means for Inspirisles is that we'll have similar signs to that, but for specifically to the world. So if the questing beast, it could be Q, questing beast. Questing beast, and all the kids will learn these lexicons, and they will have the chance to develop their own words for things.
Okay, very cool. And this, of course, draws anyways. Like even on its own, this draws from some ideas of magic craft from fiction. In particular, I know Benedict Cumberbatch spent a long time learning hand signs when working on Doctor Strange. And the magic in Doctor Strange and in the Disney films is directly tied to the weaving of hand signs. Yeah,
there was a recent film about King Arthur's, I thought the boy would be king. I think it was called.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know he doesn't use sign language, but the Merlin character uses these strange hand movements to cast spells. Again, I think it's inspired by. I've seen loads recently. The Dragon Prince has got a deaf character in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sort of commander, the female commander of some sort of. I haven't watched it extensively, but I noticed an episode that my daughter was watching. It was and she was doing sign language. So I was like, wow, okay, brilliant.
I believe the BBC series Merlin may have as well, but I can't remember.
Okay.
I loved that show.
But, Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. I'm watching all these things at the same time. You know, I'm visiting places around the country and stuff.
Oh wow, very
getting
cool.
inspiration.
Yeah. The game says that it introduces both British Sign Language (BSL) and sign-supported English, as well as some elements of ASL. Is there a relatively how much overlap is there between those? And how is the game handling kind of introducing multiple forms of iterations of sign language?
They're nothing like each other.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I was wondering.
American sign is largely one-handed. British Sign Language is a paper pen principle. So your left hand is the paper, and your right hand, or your dominant hand is the pen.
Okay.
And you're doing lots of signs. So the finger spelling, the alphabet is A, B, C, and then I don't know American Sign Language, obviously.
So maybe it's the opposite. So they're different enough that they can be introduced kind of together without being confusing. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Every country's got different variation of sign language. All slang in Australia, and rather wonderfully, I've been approached by 3 countries now, companies from 3 countries: Poland, Italy, and Australia, saying they will localize it from their point of view. They will localize my entire book and create all the sign language sheets independently.
That's amazing.
And then launch it in those countries. And I do feel like when it's done in British Sign Language and American Sign Language, it starts to spread. I think we'll also see a lot of localization, which should obviously take it everywhere, which would just be incredible, obviously.
Yeah, I love that.
I have no idea this would happen. I had absolutely, genuinely no concept. That's
how the internet works, though, man. I mean, you hear that from even like the big players. Like I remember I watched. I'm a big fan of Critical Role, and I remember when they launched their Kickstarter, and like they were going to do that like promo stream. It was just going to be them like hyping it up, and it's Matt Mercer sitting there like, why are we doing this? What's happening?
I know it is crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy. It's also like you talk about Critical Role. I mean, but they were playing in their living room. It was one of the living rooms, before they started the stream. And it grew. I mean, it was bound to grow because they're amazing individuals. Yeah. It's a fantastic show. It's a fantastic show, and they're so genuine. They're so lovely. The people in it are so lovely. You know, you can feel it. You know, I mean, that's the difference between certain community members. You can feel their authenticity and how much they care about people. Really.
Yeah, and we've talked about accessibility and making things easier for people to jump in on. There's been such an interesting like combination of talk in Critical Role. There's obviously been problems that have been brought up with some of the community in the form of like certain Discord channels and stuff where people can be a little too aggressive.
Right.
There's also been talk of what I don't like the term Matt Mercer effect, but I guess it's true, where a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right because my game's not like Critical Roles. But at the same time, they've been open enough about it, and I love hearing them talk about how every game should be different. Yours isn't going to be like ours. On top of that, and this is me speaking without enough experience to be the one to say, I suppose, but Mercer has tried to include a wealth of NPCs in the game. One of my favorite characters so far has been Orly, the turtle bard upon their ship, who has a speech impediment. He has a stutter, and Mercer says he had a stutter as when he was young, and he kind of drew upon that for that, and has tried to do it in a respectful way. And I can't be the one to judge if he is doing it in a respectful way, but from what I've heard, I think he has, and if so, I really appreciate that they've tried to include different kinds of characters.
I mean, for me, that is an extraordinary feat. To be streaming that in front of the audience that he has, and to be able to have the confidence to maybe represent something like that,
and that people actually requested that as one of his character traits, because that was an NPC that was fan made. They did a stream and people could do a survey and write in what they wanted the character to be like, and that was one of the things that came written, which was interesting.
I'll tell you a couple of things that have happened recently. I'm quite an emotional person, but I'll keep it together. But like today, I received a message from a father of a deaf boy, and he said it on my Facebook site. He said, "This is the first role-playing game I'll be able to play with him." And
that's really touching.
Yeah, it really got to me, and but before that, I had another member of my followers on Twitter. I'm quite close to this person. I won't name them, obviously, but they approached me in direct messaging. We were talking about being parents and our children, and she was talking about a daughter who's got a port wine stain quite a significant one. And we chatted for quite a while, maybe like half an hour on this direct messenger thing. And I said to her at the end, I said, like, do you want me to include your daughter as a character in the game? And that's what we're doing. We've got another community member called Scriv the Bard. I don't know if you've come across this person.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but she's been my greatest ally since the beginning of the whole thing. Since 2 years ago, I connected with her, and we've been to conventions together, and she's completely supportive of me. And she also does role-playing games with children in a Iastera world. And she's a fundamental character in the book. She's essentially the narrator of the whole game.
Awesome.
And now, this person I'm talking about will become Scriv's assistant in the game, and it's going to be visually represented throughout the game.
That's wonderful.
With a prominent port wine stain, and then her daughter can then pick that book up, which she's backed in the new year, and go, "This is you." And that really makes me very, very happy.
I love that, and that's not. I mean, that's on top of being wonderful for her. Other kids will see that and have someone they can see that's like them, and that's so important. So important. It's like the combat wheelchair, isn't it? Come on, it's exactly the same. It's like people. It's not the point. I mean, I put a message. It was quite an extreme message. I said, like, there's no argument, there's no conversation here. If you don't support this, or if you don't, there's no questions to it. You just either accept it or you don't. Yep.
It's as simple as that. It's about representation. It's about kindness. Come on, it's about kindness.
Very much so.
It's about people. It's about people with that disability seeing this represented for them. It boggles my mind. But you're talking about such a massive community. There's bound to be a kickback on anything.
For sure. And there are the people that are holding out. We've of course seen that in some responses to things like the combat wheelchair. But I feel like I hope they're a very loud minority. I want that to be the case. I don't know if it is. But there's so many people doing great work that I'd just rather talk about them. You being one of them in this amazing game.
I'd rather talk about positive action.
Yeah, exactly. Build rather than tear down.
Exactly. Yeah. So having representation in there is really important to us as well. And I think that there's little things we can do with the dyslexia fonts and all these things we're trying to bring into it. Anna, our layout designer, is very, very up on that. Very, very passionate about it.
Dyslexia.
E-readers.
Yeah, dyslexia-friendly font. For those out there who are making things for, so many people are making things for DM's Guild now, or for TTRPG or Itch. That I wonder how many people are actually thinking about that. What compromises for the creators out there that are just getting started? Where's a good?
There's no compromise though. It's not difficult to do that. I mean, there's lots of serif font. There's lots of serif fonts that are completely dyslexia friendly. And I've actually spoken to a community member again. I contacted them directly, and that they've got dyslexia, and they said, like, I've seen this is on your Kickstarter. Like, this makes me really, really happy. Like, do you want some consultancy with it? I was like, yes, I do want some consultancy with it. So I'm not an expert, but I spoke to this person. I showed them our sample page, and they've already given me suggestions about color use, about separating the titles of things to make them stand out, about even symbols. The design of symbols might be a bit difficult to comprehend.
Okay.
And yeah, they're doing it for free, but I might very well pay them eventually and have them on board as a consultant. That's the thing that raising more money gives you. It gives you more opportunity to work with professionals in their field.
That's awesome. And yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind was font choices. I didn't think about line spacing, so that's interesting. There's things
line spacing, color, symbols, all the complexity of things can really jar people.
Yeah.
With dyslexia, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Would we call this book an educational tool? That's something I kind of wondered. It of course does educate, but a lot of people I've seen will shy away from the term educational tool because it makes it sound like it belongs specifically in a classroom. And I definitely could see this being used in a classroom, but it's of course also a game. Like, I want to play this with my younger cousins at a table at some point. Where do you stand on the use of a term like educational tool?
We're comfortable with it, but like you say, we're very much in the midpoint. So, in other words, it can be used in tabletop role-playing groups. Obviously, that's where our main aim is. But we want it to be used in extracurricular education. So it would be summer camps, it would be after-school groups. So not necessarily within the school curriculum, but there are some curriculum elements to it, like I said, about life skills and about empathy and about deaf awareness, and the sign language, obviously. You're probably not aware, but sign language is apparently going to be a GCSE subject topic choice from next year in the UK.
Oh, cool.
So our game couldn't have come at a better time, really, especially locally. But yeah, we're going to be very much that midpoint. So you know, a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of tabletop role playing games are played as extracurricular activities for kids after school. Anyway, that's the bread and butter of it, especially in the UK.
For sure.
So our game will very much fit there. Yeah.
Okay. What else? Let's see. You include the attributes here. They are a little different as far as name goes. Sword, shield, speed, smart, social, and survival. Do those function similarly to strength, dexterity, constitution, the ones we have in D&D?
No. Not really.
Okay.
Basically, they work on the questing day. So the idea is that at the beginning of the questing day, like I said before, each foundling player will pick one of those 6 areas. So say they want to earn belief through combat, they will pick a sword. So they want to defend a village against trolls. They will pick shield. So they want to go out into the wilderness and try and negotiate this new area to explore. They might pick survival. So these are kind of what they are as subject branches.
Oh, okay. I understand.
But additionally, they're also used within the encounter. So say someone wants to go to a tavern in Weldspa City, which is our main city in London, then they would go with the social function, the social, and they would maybe whip out like a violin or like a guitar and start playing in the tavern. And then that stat bonus they get from having that as their highest stat would be applied to the overall rolls. If that makes sense.
Okay, you said something a few times that I'm interested in, where you've said a location in the games world and then the location in the real world. What is the relation between the two? The way you said it, it's kind of like it's a world within a world. It makes me think of like the Goblin Market in Hellboy. Kind of, where it's like right under your nose. Is that what you're going for?
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad. It's like one of my favourite films ever. I think it's one of the best fantasy films ever made. Hellboy 2 is extraordinarily good. And the Troll Market is another influence, yeah. Okay. So, but fundamentally, there's a thing called the Allswell, which is in the Inspirisles, which is the portal to our world. And you can essentially emerge anywhere, and this is why we can provide an American Sign Language version or a Polish version or Australian version, because they essentially can emerge anywhere. So while our world is set on the British Isles, our main sort of area, when you go dusting or when you go back to our world, you can come out anywhere. So the American Sign Language version of the book will have the first adventure set in the US. So the British Sign Language version is in a local town in the UK. So essentially, you go through the Allswell and you come out at the Endswell, which is anywhere on the planet, basically.
Okay. And the two.
So that's how it relates.
Okay. And the two kind of sit alongside each other. These worlds of the Inspirisles and the real world.
And the human world. Yeah.
Very cool.
As I said, because if one drifts into disbelief, the other does.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And we kind of mentioned briefly the idea of dusting. traveling via Allswell, a mysterious portal leading to the British Isles. On their 15th birthdays, the brightest and bravest foundlings are sent earthwards to collect belief. These elites are known as dusters. With the help of a well-wisher, a common mammal transformed by Hathcling to be more like you and I, dusters will be guided to a child without belief, a teenager struggling to feel magic in their life. Players will then roll a 6-sided dusting die, a d6, revealing the child's particular sensitivity: fear, joy, wonder, help, story, or other, determined by the Grail Guide. Through role-playing this sensitivity, foundlings must convince the child that magic exists before collecting their belief to take back. I want to play out that scenario. That's so cool.
Well, you will with the introductory adventure.
Yes.
Which is called dusting.
Okay.
So the way it works, you create your character. Scriv takes you off to your friend, who will then train you for 2 years. Not literally in the game, obviously, but you just imagine it. 2 years have passed, and then in a sort of Fellowship of the Ring way, you'll be sent as an emissary of that community to like the meeting. You know, like in the Fellowship of the Ring, they have the fellowship, don't they? They get together and they're like, I'll support you, and they're representative of the champions of each area. So these foundlings, essentially, you'd imagine there'd be quite a lot of them. But only the players are the ones that are sent to dust. So they essentially become like an elite group that are sent back to Earth. And as you said, as you referenced earlier, the Monsters Inc. is another influence. Yeah. They collect belief like they collect laughter.
And then we have
not screams, but screams at the same time. It could be screams because one of the options is fear. So you could scare a child essentially, or in an appropriate way, and then collect the belief that it's earned from that way. So everything earns belief, but it really depends how you roll and how the cards play out.
Very cool. It's Monsters Inc. or Halloween Town, not Halloween Town.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Kind of that too. Nightmare Before Christmas. Like I think of Jack Skellington. That is what comes to mind. And
it's funny because come on.
Oh, it goes back to what you were saying about like it's drawing from all these things, but in a more constructive, kind of positive way. You're not necessarily there to scare the pants off a child, though that may be what you end up doing. Joy, wonder, help, story. That's really cool.
Yeah, so you could sit down with this child and convince them of the Inspirisles by telling them a story about something. And this is what harks back to the fundamentally you can earn belief in certain ways within the Inspirisles and dusting, and it will inform the kind of overall way of earning belief. But also, as with like a D&D adventure, you have side quests or you have downtime, right? But our downtime isn't really downtime because you're still earning belief. Say you go fishing on the Welsh coast with like a couple of bucka on like a pirate ship or something, then you're still earning belief, but maybe a little less because it's not a set encounter. Then. Yeah, you're not laying cards down. Then you're not rolling dice. You're just going for a downtime, and you're going, the Grail can go, it's probably 50 belief for that, I would say, or you've caught a massive fish or something. You caught the biggest kind of mackerel or bass you've ever seen. It's like, that's like 100 belief.
Yeah, I'm now just combing through like some of my favorite stories and stuff, thinking about how that one thing that comes to mind is like the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. That mariner is definitely there to tell a story.
Yeah.
And get people to believe in the fantastical tale that he's there to tell.
We haven't discussed the actual system or the encounter system yet in depth. And I think it's about time I revealed it to someone because we've been keeping this under wraps for ages. So you've got an exclusive with this one.
I'm a fan.
We've built a completely narrative system. So it's a stage thing. So when you go into this scenario, the founding leader is picked. So say he picks the tavern. Okay, I'll give an example. Say he picks a social encounter which the Grail guy would have come up with before the adventure. So the Grail guy would have said, right, if they're going to pick social, it's going to either be they're going to go to a tavern in the city, or they're going to go to the circus and do a performance, or they're going to do something like that. Yeah. And then the founding will go, my highest stat is social. I kind of want to earn belief that way first, definitely. before I go to something else. So can I play in a tavern? Can I play my ukulele in a tavern and try and entertain the crowd and earn belief that way? Right. So they travel to the city. They go into the tavern, and there's a bit of an atmosphere there. People are drinking. People are a bit rowdy, and they go, right, I don't know. This is a bit of a tough crowd, right? So I'm going to lay down music, say, as my card, or say if they got an instrument card. So an item would be an instrument, or ability would be the ability to play music well. Okay, so these are one of their cards. So they lay down the card, then the rest of the group look at theirs and they go, right, well, I've got you've put down music as an ability. I'm going to put down I'm going to conjure flame and make the atmosphere in the tavern better. I'm going to conjure flames around you and draw attention to you. Right, so they already built a few bonuses there. So they get a fire bonus, they get like a social bonus with the music. Then, what happens then is it goes into a narrative mode. So the Grail guy goes, right, you've laid these cards down. This is your total so far. Like, the crowd is starting to pay attention. The Grail guy will go to explain it. They'll go, oh, you're starting to... The people have started to tap their feet. They're starting to turn to you. They're starting to enjoy the music. Right, then you roll the dice. Right, and you add your boon. So if you're going to a social encounter, you add your social bonus. So you roll a d12. Say you get a 12, and your highest stat is social. You're astronomically high rolling at that moment. Then the Grail guy will go, right, everyone's paying attention. Everyone's focused on you. They're loving it. The atmosphere in there is amazing. There's birds flying through the windows. There's the Kilner's come from his forge. He's walked across the street because he can hear ukulele going on. And he's even added to the atmosphere. Right, then, if they still don't think they've earned enough belief from this, they can use their Grail pool, like I said before, which is essentially sipping from the Holy Grail water. Right, now that they can roll any dice they want from that if they've got one left.
Okay.
Right,
Very
so if they've only got a d6 and d4 left, that's all they've got left to roll, so they can roll a d6 and add +6 to it. So say they roll a 6 then, on a d6, then they've got the highest possible roll they can get from that encounter. And then the Grail guy will finish it with, like, literally the whole tavern is enraptured by your music. Kilner's kind of like, he's like lit the sort of fireplace up. He's kind of like, he's clanging his like hammers together and stuff like that. And like the knockers in the crowd, they're the patron of him. They're kind of like completely, like jumping on tables and everything. And the Grail guy can go as far as they want with it, or the child or the adult playing. Essentially the narrator of the story. And then they earn maximum belief. And they can potentially buy more cards, or they can rank up easily. Now, adversely, of course, it can go very badly wrong. So the story, the narrative would go very differently. It'd be like, you haven't got any cards to put in, or appropriate cards to put in. Oh, they're not paying much attention. This person's thrown a wine glass at you, something like that. The Grail could say, and then they roll the dice. They get a 1 on a d12, and their lowest stat is social. There's no atmosphere at all. Kilner's like, they can almost hear Kilner's smashing his metal over at the forge, over your ukulele, or the booze in the crowd. And then you use the Grail pool, and it's almost like a wasted dice then.
Okay. I love that. I love narrative-driven games anyways. And that's just really cool. It plays off the whole like yes and improv mechanics that tabletop games benefit from anyways. I love that it's very interpretive, if that makes sense. That it's pretty open-ended. And I like that as well, like when you were describing, like, are you familiar with a game, I can't think who made it right now, called Spell, the RPG?
No.
So Spell is, it's on drive-thru currently, but the idea of the game is you use Scrabble tiles as you play, and it plays with the idea that magic is the essential language of the universe, that the players can learn to interpret and create magic. And so when you roll your d6, you roll a 5, you draw out 5 Scrabble tiles. And anything you spell with those tiles is what you do. So if I spell fire, then I can manipulate fire, and I decide how that works. As long as I spell out fire.
That is so genius.
Yeah, it's such a cool idea for a game.
That's an incredible idea.
Yeah, and this works similarly to me, it feels like. And I just love that, like, interpretive. It's pretty open-ended, and it allows the players to be creative in their use.
But the reason we did it initially and overall is because it makes each scenario dynamic.
Yeah.
It makes each scenario collaborative, and it makes each scenario engaging. And we feel that system will work so well in terms of going on for a decent amount of time, because the Grail Guide has to kind of make the players know how it's going, and they have to judge whether they double down or they bail.
This game will be I feel like a lot of work for the Grail Guide, but the best kind of work.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm going to really
exactly.
have to bring my A game narratively to the table for this game.
You are, but you can go as far as you want with it.
Oh,
you can say, well, the crowd aren't enjoying it. If if you don't feel like you can, I mean, it's as simple as that, really.
Yeah. Oh no, I love to sink my teeth into that. Like, that was a compliment.
Yeah, I think you'll love it. I think you'll absolutely.
Yeah,
love it. And then the system of earning belief is meant to be a collaborative thing as well. It's all meant to be drawn. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to fail. There's no failure in it. That's the most important thing. I mean, Jay. He put on Wander Home. He said one of the first things he posted before he launched the Kickstarter was like, there is no failure in this game. People should be allowed to do that. And it's the same with us. We don't want to feel that people have failed, because that's why we've got a system where they earn belief regardless of what they engage in. There's always a little bit of belief there.
Yeah,
they're always earning all the time. But it's just degrees of how much, basically.
Okay.
Degrees of success,
Yeah. I like that. It's an encouraging game. It is very encouraging. And I really like that. And it's definitely well suited for its target audience in that way. Where I've definitely played games with younger people, and it's something that I'm still learning how to do correctly. I have younger cousins, but they're not really into this kind of thing. I'm the oldest of 9, and we all grew up on one street.
Wow.
People used to joke because I'm short and stocky, and I love to cook, and my friends in college called me Sam Gamgee. And then when they would come visit my home, and all my cousins and aunts and uncles all live on the same grassy hill with farms and such, they're like, "You are, and this is the Shire." But I've tried to get them to play.
That's such a lovely compliment, though. Really.
Yeah. Sam's the hero of Lord of the Rings. I'm just saying.
He is 100%. You can 100% be, the Grail Guide or your own little Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. With your Knocker friends and your Knocker community.
Yeah.
And Kilner by getting spells off Kilner.
Yeah, there we go. I love it.
Yeah.
I've tried to get the younger ones to play, and only one of them enjoys it. I try, but it's mostly just because they get bored with it. But I feel like it's very positive. It allows them to do a lot of the talking.
Yeah.
About time to try it again, I think.
Yeah.
D&D, they don't like all the math. They're all like, this is just too much.
Yeah. There's a lot of agency. There's a lot of engagement in the game. There's a lot. There's sign language while you're doing activities. There's also the fact that when the Grail Guide, even that scenario with the tavern, I mean, the players are going to really get into that, or really feel the kind of disappointment of not really having an impact.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, how can I do this? It's like, well, it's just the way it goes. It's just the way that's gone.
Yeah. I really love that kind of narrative. Man, that's really cool. I love that a lot. Very nice.
Yeah, well, you're the first person we spoke about that system in depth. So,
well, thank you for sharing that.
We'll have to hope we get it out before someone parrots it.
Also, one other little thing, I love the Inspirisles certificate. Certificate of achievement in shaping printout that's here in the Kickstarter. That's something that, again, as kids learn through this game, I look forward to giving that to someone.
Yeah, well, so we have almost a Harry Potter-esque school in the game. It's called the School of Shaping.
Ooh.
And it's in the and it's run exclusively by the Glow, which is like I said, they're kind of like the high fae, and And yeah, they teach you high level shaping. So all the worms are in that school. All the dragons of the game live with, you know, like, with their spectacles and all those sort of things within the game. But they're in that school, yeah. So there's like a headmaster and teachers.
Very cool. So of course, with this Kickstarter coming to an end, the core book is on the way, and I'm super excited to see it. Are there any, with as successful as this has been, as much hype as has come from the initial Kickstarter, are there future Inspirisles projects already, like, running through your mind? You got any, like, things you're hoping to do with it in the future?
I'll be honest with you, I'm developing it at the same time.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm not going to give too much away, but it's going to be called Feathers. And it will be using very much the same aesthetic, so like Zelda-ish look, a feel, with all the sort of storytelling elements, and also a different type of sign language, which I won't go into because I don't want to give too much away. But it will be for younger children and adults as well.
Okay. Very cool. There are 32 minutes left, by the way, so if you're watching this, go back this. You got 30 minutes left.
Get to it. Come on.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant coincidence of a stream. It's fantastic.
Where are we sitting at goal-wise?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it since I've been talking to you.
You are at $40,928 with 771 backers.
I can't even contemplate that.
Right?
I can't even contemplate that.
But it's the good kind.
That will entirely give me a career.
Yeah.
In the role playing community, it is unthinkable that I would have had this much support. It's utterly madness. And I thank everyone for their support. It's really, you know, from people close to me all the way up to people like that I even know. You know, it's just been such an outpouring of kind of like enthusiasm and passion for it. It's just I want to thank everyone right now. I'm very emotional recently, like the last couple of days, because it's been hard as well. The Kickstarter was trial by fire in some ways.
Yeah.
It wasn't always easy. I mean, I got 2 children, young children. I got a nearly full-time job with the deaf community, like I said, and I've launched all this stuff, and it's 24/7. And was it worth it? Yes, of course it was. Now looking at what I've done, 100% worth it. And I can pay all these artists with a spectacular art and a spectacular talent, and get all the books out to people, and have a bit left for promotion and possibly hiring someone to run groups at conventions. And the other thing we really want to do, is have an interpreter with us when we go to them, which would be phenomenally great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
So hire an interpreter to be there, because Raji's going to be there, who's doing our tutorial videos. Because we haven't talked about that, but every purchase of the game comes with a free link to a video.
That's really
which
cool.
is a full visual tutorial video on film. Now,
will that be a Kickstarter exclusive, or when this game is available?
No.
Okay.
100% not. No, that's comes as standard. Again, we don't want to exclude anyone, really. We don't want to exclude anyone at all, especially as you know, it would inform the learning of the language. So it's in our favour to release it in as many formats as possible.
For sure. Is there anything that is Kickstarter exclusive that people should be aware of?
Limited edition.
Limited edition. Okay.
Yeah. It says it's exclusive, Kickstarter only.
Okay, and that's what this.
So the short story and the MP3 and things.
Okay.
Will be exclusive to the book, and the alternative cover, which Josh wants to change now. He's not entirely happy with it.
Do we have the alternative cover on here? Is that the initial one at the top?
Yeah, it's on. No, so if you look at the books, the mocks of the books, it's the right one.
Oh,
it's got Arthur and Guinevere on it.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that was the back cover. I misunderstood it.
No.
I see it now. Standard and limited edition mock-ups. Okay.
Yeah.
and that's a gorgeous cover. The chalice that is the Grail.
Yeah.
Very cool. The art makes me think of a lot of things, everything from Northern European mythology, but it also really brings to mind the movie Book of Kells. If you're familiar with that at all, some of the best art in animation ever in the Book of Kells.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's that haunting little musical piece in there when she turns the cat into a spirit to get Brennan out of the tower. I love that movie.
I mean, Lucille's sending me the character art, and I was just like, absolutely blown away. Like, I didn't expect to be like be sent something and go, yeah, straight pass. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. You know, and Josh is doing the same. He's doing a question. He's just done a troll for me today.
Ooh.
And every time he pops up on Facebook Messenger and he says like image available, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And I look at it, I'm like, it's just absolute genius. I wish I could send you it, but
it's like Christmas.
I might better show on my phone actually.
Yeah. It's like Christmas all the time.
Matt, he's just so talented. Check this troll out.
Oh,
how cool is that?
Very, and it makes me think the mane makes me think of the Lionels from Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. But it's just this way of colouring things, and oh man, it's so cool. And he's got this massive bone on his back because trolls earn belief by building bridges over civilizations and like ransacking them. So they've got these huge animal bones. They build these massive, like the folklore of like the billy goat's gruff and the trolls and the bridges.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking that to a whole different level.
Very cool.
And if you notice on the Kickstarter, unfortunately, we didn't reach 70,000 or whatever it's at, 50,000. But the end stretch goal was going to be the goat, which is grand operations against trollkind. So it's a play on billy goat's gruff. And it would have taught the players how to bring the bridges down, and it would have had different troll varieties and stuff. But we will release it in the future.
We'll get there. You hit the new artist, and that's actually you said something. I recently watched a stream with Swordsfall, who's one of my other favorite creators in the community. I love all of Brandon Dixon's stuff. But he was on here just bragging about his artists that he's been able to hire due to the success. And I think we've seen in the TTRPG community more than in most industries how to allow a rising tide to lift all ships. And I don't remember who went on Twitter to say like the proof is in the pudding that people can make careers in this space, that people can find work and meaningful work making these amazing games that we all enjoy, and things are ever expanding, and that's been something that I really love to see. I'm not necessarily here looking. I love being a teacher, and then I'm a journalist on top of that, so I'm very busy with work, but I just love to see it. I
think it is a unique feeling. And I expect that what's Swordsfall Dixon? Do you say?
Brandon Dixon, Swordsfall.
Brandon.
He made
I know of him, but I didn't know his actual real name.
Oh yeah.
But there's a unique feeling to receiving the results of your imagination. It is. I think it's pretty much unrivaled. I think I can imagine what film directors feel like, especially like animation directors. Like they must go like, "Oh, I envision this happening this way, or this form of transport." In my head, this is what. Like, can you do some concept sketches? I mean, imagine what Peter Jackson felt like when all those artists, were doing his concepts for the sets and for the characters, and he would have been like jaw at the floor. Even though he's an experienced director, he would have been like, "This is just." Incredible.
I felt similarly. I've directed some plays and stuff. I love the theater. That's what I initially went to school for. And that night when you finally get to sit in the audience and watch the actors bring it all home is
I can tell that you're a teacher and a theatre enthusiast because of the way you interview, the way you hold yourself.
Oh, thank you.
You're very confident. You feel very reassured.
I appreciate
the conversations flowed like a river, hasn't it?
I hope so. I love to interview people and just talk.
Yeah, I think you're a top draw interviewer. It's brilliant.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, we the artists and stuff. He recently showed some of he's working on a new supplement for mechs in his game, and just hearing about all these artists finding work with not Wizards of the Coast pleases me greatly. Yeah. And we're seeing just this big expansion. Yeah. As you've kind of built this team around you, how's that experience been?
Pretty organic, pretty natural. I mean, Josh Mythic Comics Art on Twitter. Josh, I got in contact with 2 years ago. Before just as I was conceiving the idea for the game, running it with Hatchling's groups, I thought, well, maybe I should make a role-playing game myself. I'll make a 5th edition module, and I'll just skin it differently, and maybe I'll include some sign language. I don't know how I'll do that. I contacted Josh, and I thought I want it to be in a Celtic setting. I saw his knot art, and I was absolutely floored by it. I literally couldn't believe I had no concept of, when you see something, you're I have no concept of how this person does this. And I'm super intrigued, and I contacted him. I was like, you're in the UK, you're not far from me. How much would you charge for the cover, for a game? And he was like, oh, I won't tell you how much he said, but it was a lot. And I was like, okay, I'll keep your name. I'll keep your name in the locker. And I was like, well, maybe one day I'll have some money to do some concept art or a cover art. And then 2 years later, I'm here, and he's working for me. He's working with me.
And see those.
He's been, in terms of the team, he's been the closest person I've worked with.
And it amazes me how socials have evolved to fill that role of helping us discover the people we need to work with us. I see people all the time. That's been my main source of finding people to invite on this channel is just social media. I see someone on Twitter who's talking about their work, and that's how I found you. I was on, I think Gamer Mom Luna shared your Kickstarter, and I clicked on it, and it was amazing, and I was like, I have to message this person. I learned a lot through Gamer Mom Luna and Tales, just in general.
She's just so enthusiastic about the project, enthusiastic. It was lovely being on the show. Like a Brit on there amongst Americans.
Yeah, I'm going to be on there next Thursday.
It was just interesting. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll tune into that definitely.
Awesome.
But she, there's so much encouragement in. I think what it is. I think I established a Twitter community over a long period of time. It was very organic. It was no quick fix. It was me forming true relationships with people in all different fields of the role-playing community, and I was very focused on the role-playing community. I didn't join wrestling followers and things like that. It was very, very much honed that direction. I was very sure what I wanted and what I wanted to do. I started connecting with Scriv, who runs people that run tabletop gaming for children and for families. Again, it's another avenue I want to do. So I focused more and more and more, and then you start to form these connections. You start to go to conventions with people, and you start to get people intrigued by your projects. And then what you do, it's not difficult. You just support others.
Yeah.
You support others genuinely and enthusiastically. And that's exactly how you form a community. That's exactly how you make friends anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't support people, you're not going to have many friends, are you?
No, not at all. And
you've got to do it from a place of authenticity.
And that's
not trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, and that's really an interesting part of this community is how those two things overlap. In other fields I've worked in, it's not really, those are two separate things. You make your friends, but that's separate from the professional. Yeah. Here, it all mixes together, and I guess that's because we're dealing with things that are meant for fun time professionally. But another thing I just now thought about that I really love is we have King Arthur and we have Queen Guinevere, And Guinevere is in just the same type of armor as Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
was a creative decision. It was a creative decision. I want equality. I 100% want equality.
Sure.
There's been a few complaints about the skirt and stuff, but Josh did his research, and that's what they would have, women would have worn in that era to in warfare and battle. So he's completely right to do it that way, to design that way. He wants to make some adjustments to it and possibly change it up a bit, but we can do that. We're still going to release the options to the backers.
Yeah.
If they get the new alt cover through and they go, oh my god, this is incredible now. We'll take it over the original, because a lot of people love the original cover. Obviously, that's pretty much which raised our kind of our support in the first place.
You're in a good place when people are like, I don't know, I kind of want both covers.
Exactly, that's the dream. Yeah. But yeah, we want equality. 100% want equality. We want diversity. Yeah. We're even thinking. I mean, it's completely. Ashley's doing our sign language sheets with the illustrated hands. They're on the Kickstarter again. Examples of them, the heart and things. And I want the sign language sheets to be diverse as well and representative, because in traditional sign language sheets, they're all white hands. Yeah. All of them. Which is obviously ridiculously offensive in some ways.
Yeah.
But so I've said to Ashley, we need to have representative of all different backgrounds. And also on the sheets, I want a prosthetic hands.
Oh, great! That's great.
Yeah. To represent that as well. It's about representing. It's about representing different sections of the community.
That's very cool.
All the way through it.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about that. It's about what it is as a designer and a developer. It's about having things in your mind all the time, and it's not through any means of manipulation or any means of making more money. It's about making it more representative and accessible. It's simple as that. Simple as that. And if you're a good person, if you're coming from the right place, because I never expected to make anything like this money. So for someone to say that I was greedy or something, it's completely off the charts, wrong.
Yeah. People don't understand sometimes what it takes to make these things work. I think.
Yeah.
Like you see the big numbers on Kickstarter and stuff. And it's like, well, there's the artists, there's the printing company, there's advertisement. There's
an alternate book.
Yeah.
With entirely different language, entirely different videos, entirely different tutorial. It's not a small undertaking.
No.
It's not a small undertaking. And we've got to pay all the deaf members of the team. We've got to pay the people who are doing the sign language. We've got to pay the deaf consultant. It's not cheap, and all that money will go towards the book. But I'm happy with that, because obviously that will form a beautiful product and secure my next project.
Yeah, and
reinvestment's the best thing you can do. Yeah. Reinvestment is 100% the best thing.
100%, and I say it on here all the time, but you can't just get the free games if you want to see our community continue to grow. You have to invest a little bit.
Definitely.
Buy things and don't buy them from if you want to get Wizard stuff, do. But if you have a choice between Wizards, if you have a choice between Rime of the Frost Maiden. Get this instead. Just
exactly.
Check out Swords Fall. Check out.
You've already got the core books.
Yeah,
just make your adventures up. Make your campaigns up. Don't get a module.
Go see Zweihander or something like that. Yeah. Just anything else. Get these get these people where they can make more stuff and hire more people, so that there's more jobs in our community.
Increase the wave, increase the indie wave. Come on, let's get it up there. Let's get it competitive.
We can ride this wave way higher. It can happen. Can you tell me about this image here? One of the images on the Kickstarter. I have an old man with a torch, I think, and he's in a cave, and there's a big old spider.
Yeah, so that's kind of it was originally said to it's about a play on not going alone.
Uh-huh.
So in other words, it was trying to teach the players, like, as an image in the beginning of the book, saying like, this is very much a collaborative thing. It's very much a team game, a group game. So like, if you go off into the Underisles on your own with a torch, you're going to get eaten.
That guy's in trouble because he's on his own. Yeah.
But you have to remember that all the art, as I launched the Kickstarter, was mine.
Mm-hmm.
All of it, all the watercolor pieces were mine.
Oh.
So these are all likely to be removed now and replaced with professional art. All I did was try to get a bit of interest in the game, and compliment Josh's cover art and his like kind of framed art.
That just shows a really cool evolution. I love it.
Yeah, so there might be some of my art in there just for my own.
I'd love to see at least a couple in there. That's really cool.
Oh, okay, I'll say to now there'll be a few in there. I'll try and put some in. I love my green dragon. I love
the green dragon is gorgeous.
The hibernating dragon, yeah.
I played a character that had a pet fairy dragon one time.
Yeah.
And I have a fondness for fairy dragons just in general.
So the dragons basically, I didn't tell you about this, but the dragons basically were a big problem back in when Arthur appealed to the Fey race, because the dragons, as they hoard gold in most fantasy settings, they also hoard belief. Or they hoarded belief. So the Fey wanted to give the humans their hoarded belief to right the world, basically for the greater good, and the dragons refused. The worms refused to give it up. So that was why there's no death or bloodletting or violence, because they had a massive war, and it made the world worse. It tipped it more into disbelief.
Okay.
So the dragons, that picture's based on the dragons going into hibernation, basically, for like 1,000 years.
Oh yeah, and it's tidal hibernation too. Now that I see it.
Yeah. So they re-emerged as teachers, and they agreed to be teachers of sign language or of shaping, to make amends for their kind of greed.
They reformed. I like that.
Yeah, but are there still ones that do hoard? Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
That will be something I'll have to work with, because I just love dragons in general.
You'll love the dragons, yeah. So we're doing at the same time as the whole game's being built. We are building a system where you can make your own shapes, items, and abilities, and monsters.
Yeah. I'm just going through some of the stuff here in the Kickstarter now. We have Kilna here. We have a card for Kilna. Mm-hmm. Kilna was born from Gog Magog's heart and is deeply passionate. Who's Gog Magog?
The first giant.
Okay. Oh, so kind of the Norse type of idea of creation?
Yeah, Gog Magog, the creation myth is that he stepped on the Crone of Craft's creation. Basically, the Crone of Craft was essentially like a creation goddess. Mm-hmm. And she built things out of she started sculpting like the races of the world. Mm-hmm. And then Gog Magog, he's just a big clumsy giant. He kind of stepped on them, and she was obviously really annoyed, and she poisoned him. And he felt like his organs were failing. All creation myths are really gory and kind of macabre.
Yeah.
So ours is no different, and teens love a bit of that, to be honest.
Yeah, they do.
So what he does, he pulled all his own organs out through his mouth, and they became the 4 elementals.
Ooh.
So Kiln was born from his heart, Aethlin from his bladder, Vorm from his lungs, and Igraine from his body, which kind of faded.
There's some 4 humor stuff going on there.
Yeah. And then the Crone of Craft felt very guilty, and then took them in as her children. So she sort of adopted them.
I love it. Even there's a positive twist.
Yep. So they became the gods, and they're called the Inspired. They're made of pure belief. They're formed from pure belief. So they're like their maximum belief.
Yeah.
And that's how they can reward people with spells. And they're basically part of the communities. So one of them lives in the city. One of them lives in sort of the coast. Mm-hmm. And they have these like I said, they have these trades, mm-hmm. like forge, like blacksmithing and piracy.
Yeah.
And a bathhouse.
Yeah. So here we have Kilna was born from Gog Magog's heart and is deeply passionate, especially when it comes to food and the arts. The taverns Kilvina frequents light up like a hearth, but serve him a tasteless meal, and he's likely to belch an inferno and burn your establishment to the ground. You can often find him in the town square juggling and swallowing fire. Kilvina sounds like a party. I like Kilvina.
He's a party boy. Yeah, but this is what I meant by greyness. You know, like there is likely to cause mayhem, or like punish, as they are to reward.
Yeah.
So I don't like this idea of good and evil. I've always found alignment incredibly troublesome in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I've always thought, like, you know, you pick lawful good, but really no one's entirely good.
Yeah.
People do hurt others.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very much trying to teach the teens and some of the adults that you know, there's a lot of there's a balance in everything and everyone.
And we have here some personality traits for Kilna, which all relate back to fire, right? Extroverted, attention-seeking, impulsive and explosive, but also artistic. All these things that we relate to fire, kind of in a traditional sense. I love that. And I like that they exist, that they're physical and you can interact with them.
Yeah, and he doesn't get on with his sister.
Oh no. Who does?
Yeah. So they're like terrible siblings, absolutely terrible.
Oh my.
And she won't let him anywhere near Avalon and the World Tree, obviously.
Oh my. So I'm gonna pull up just where we can have the window here. We are in 7 minutes of this Kickstarter, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh wow.
7 minutes. Wow. And we are at, in those 7 minutes, $41,177. 776 backers. 7 minutes to go. So you have 7 minutes. That's 10. 7 minutes to go check out this Kickstarter.
£31,500. I cannot believe it.
I don't think any of them are sold out.
Cannot believe it.
One thing, I'm impressed that most people are pledging at the higher levels. You have 290 in the Guinevere limited edition level as opposed to 147 for the Merlin level.
I think it's just you get a lot of bang for your buck. You get a lot of extras. You get the limited edition. You get the extended ASL content. Mm-hmm. You get all the stretch goals. Short story, extra adventure, extra art, loads of stuff for £45. I don't know how much is in dollars. $48 or something. You get really quite a lot, really.
Mm-hmm. And good stuff.
So we thought it's pretty good value for money, really. We thought at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure. We have a menagerie of monsters from Celtic folklore and tools to invent your own. I was going to ask you what are your favorite monsters out of them. If you have any favorites? But I'd be more interested to know as you've worked on this game with the Hatchlings. Do the Hatchlings have a favorite monster?
They love the Dullahan, the headless character, horseman. They really like wyverns from D&D when they were playing. There was a lot of wyverns in the starter sets. They like that creature, and they watched a few of them watched Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The sequel, I believe, is got a Kelpie in it, which was represented beautifully. Have you seen the sequel?
I haven't seen it yet, but I just haven't gotten around to those. And I
think it was a sequel.
I think you're right. I'm familiar with Kelpies,
but the Kelpie in that film was just made of seaweed. It's such an amazing concept.
Nice.
The artist or the concept artist must have thought, how can we make this like really sea-born horse? But it was just stunning. Obviously it's in Frozen. It's in Frozen 2 as well. The Kelpie.
It is, yeah. I'm a big fan of mandrakes. I've always thought those are cool creatures. And when I read Norse mythology, I'm always interested in skin changers. One of my personal favorites being a beaver skin changer in the myth of Sigurd.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love skin changers. They're always really cool. That's Norse though. That's a little off in another direction.
It's a lot. It's drawing from a lot. It's drawing from a lot. But yeah, I like the Banshee.
Banshees are great.
Really
Hound
cool.
of the Baskervilles is a great creature.
Yeah.
Very cool.
The Baragest, and all these things. I mean, there's hundreds. Our main races there's quite a few that I love. The Knocker and the Bucker and all
How
these.
does I wonder? Is there a thought towards like some of these creatures existing also in D&D and making them stand out in your version as apart from the D&D version? If that makes sense? Like, if you have a Fomorian, is there an effort to make the Fomorian different from the Dungeons and Dragons?
100%. We're going right back. Josh and I. Josh is a mythology major, which is a bit of an advantage. He studied classical mythology at university, and he's going right back to the sort of like the foundations and descriptions and all these texts and stuff. And he's drawing from that. I mean, the questing beast is part leopard, part snake. And part sort of like deer. So he's captured that with his picture, his representation. I think it's absolutely gobsmacked I was by that.
Yeah.
And we're both looking back at all these mythologies, and the same way, I guess, that we go back to Zelda. Zelda is essentially Celtic mythology. Very much so, very much based on that, with the the goddesses and the sages rather.
Yeah.
And the Dekus and all these things, and the world tree, and even Link himself is a fey creature. Elfin type. Yeah. 100% Celtic mythology. The Hylian, exactly.
And on top of that, the reincarnation aspect that draws from other things as well as Celtic, but it's still Celtic. And
the Lionels are like centaurs, but they're not centaurs. So in the same way we're doing that, we're kind of taking traditional, like a troll. I showed you earlier, isn't like a troll in D&D. I said to Josh, I don't want these long-nosed kind of awful, hunched over kind of disgusting things. I want something that's quite practical and utility based, and
they're kind of beautiful in a different way. They're majestic or noble, even.
Yeah, because everyone's earning belief. Remember, so they don't have to be particularly terrifying. They don't have to be particularly monstrous. They need to almost like have humanity in every one of them. Have that character of humanity. They're working. All of them are working towards the same goal. All of them are working towards the same goal.
All right.
Trying to stop the calamity.
Yeah. All right. So we have 100 seconds of this Kickstarter left. In that 100 seconds, probably the most important thing about this game is its ability to help you players and Grail guides learn sign language and communicate with people better and make our community more and more accessible. I am wondering, Hatchling DM, can you teach me a little bit? Can we go through and can you show me how to spell out my name, Casey, Casey, in sign language?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Right, C. Can you imagine what C is? Try and imagine what C is.
Yes, like a C, like a sideways. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
C. Right, now your fingers in British Sign Language are all the vowels. Your thumb from your thumb is A. E. I. O. U. So that's easy to remember. Your fingers, the top of your fingers, are all the vowels. So C. A. Yeah. So touch it with the other hand.
A.
That's it. Yeah.
C. A.
S. S is like a snake shape. So you wrap your fingers together. That's it. Yep. S.
S.
You know what E is?
E.
Yeah. And Y is like this.
Y.
In the crook of your... Yes.
Yeah. So C-A-S-E-Y.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it.
We need to work on your hand shaping.
Yeah.
Like
I got a ways to go.
But the principle learned already. Rank 1 already.
Yep. Oh, wonderful. Just as I did that, or just as we finished, the confetti's going off. Inspirisles is fully funded. Oh man!
So in the deaf community, wave like that. Silent
wave like this.
Yeah,
yes.
No clapping because they can't hear it, obviously.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like
Good point.
Yes.
700...
So we do that.
Oh, sorry.
we do that in the game. Obviously, that's what we teach the Grail guides to do, and the players.
All right.
Oh wow! Oh yeah! Look! Oh, confetti! So
cool.
proud. 777.
There you go.
31,500 pounds.
That's wonderful.
Wow.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. That's
Very
really
well
kind.
earned,
Yeah.
Wonderful project. I'm so happy to see this come out into the world, and eventually we're going to be able to see it on Drive-Thru RPG, itch.
Yep.
Okay.
At the moment, our plan is Drive-Thru RPG, and our plan is to print on demand through there. But
wonderful.
We will look at other publishing options.
Awesome. Well,
Definitely.
I'm sure you have some celebrating to do, and we are at 2 hours. So I am going to say let's end it here, and you can go get it however you like to celebrate.
I'm going to sleep.
There you go. It is midnight there, I think, isn't it?
It is midnight, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in with me. Again, congratulations. I can't wait to see where this game goes, and I can't wait to see where you go with future games. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your passion.
That's what I'm here for. Enthusiasm and hyping things up. If you
get me back on in the new year when it's published.
We'll do it. We'll definitely do that. I can't wait. We talked a little bit. I'll be playing this game on stream 100%. And we'll talk. But
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, tune in for more of this. Help me get before we talk in the new year. Anyone watching, sub. If we hit 50 before the end of the year, I'm doing a hot wing challenge on stream.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I love hot ones. Like I said, I love interviews. We're gonna do our own. Check us out every other Saturday for more interviews like this, and Fridays for live play. In the meantime, have a great night.